everybody. We're here at the National Watch and Clock Museum, and this is the Hamilton exhibit, generously sponsored by Hamilton Watch Company. Of course, you see their modern branding there, but this room sort of serves as an overview of Hamilton's history here in the States. Even starting with a scale model of their original Lancaster manufacture, which we are probably going to be visiting a little later, so stay tuned for content from that. They even brought in some old manufacturing equipment, a screw cutting machine and a wheel maker from about 1950 from that original manufacture. And there's a lot more here sort of encompassing Hamilton's history. This is a scale model of the original Hamilton manufacture that was used by Hamilton in Lancaster from 1892 to 1980. Although the building now is a series of condominium complexes as well as a Montessori school, this is a really cool opportunity to see what it would have looked like when it was in operation by Hamilton. I feel like the modern watch industry is always talking about making things in-house, but come over here and we can talk about what in-house really is. This is a screw cutting machine from about 1950, and this Unit 77 would have been in a room with dozens of other similar models pumping out screws. So Hamilton made the screws to assemble the movements entirely in-house. They would take a large steel rod, cut it down to about 1/16 of an inch or so before it was sent off for heat treating and polishing to be used by the watchmakers. Hamilton needed thousands of these screw heads to assemble their movements entirely in-house. So we all know that Hamilton's watches were made to an exacting standard of excellence and accuracy, but how were they measuring that accuracy? Well, from 1929 onward, they were using this, the Riefler clock from Germany, and then in 1945, they were using this, a Borg Gibbs quartz crystal clock. When this clock was made, it was the most accurate clock in the world, and Hamilton used it to measure all of their timekeepers against. It has a very uniform pendulum swing, which basically eliminated the entire amount of drag that was put on the movement. It was accurate to 30 milliseconds a day. So if the Riefler clock had 30 milliseconds of variance a day, the Borg Gibbs quartz crystal clock from 45 had 30 milliseconds a year of variance. This was sealed in Hamilton's vault for 25 years to measure all of their timekeepers against and really set the industry forward and massive pioneering technology for accuracy. So most watch people will know that Hamilton was founded in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, but have you ever asked why Lancaster? Well, one of the easy answers is the railroad. Accessibility from big cities like New York and Philadelphia made it possible to ship goods in and out of Lancaster quite easily. The necessary items to produce watches, tools, and other equipment, even the necessary materials to build a watchmaking manufacture like the Adams and Perry Company did in 1874, which would eventually become the Hamilton Manufacturing Building. Here you can see a fine selection of some of the military timepieces that Hamilton was making, along with other American manufacturers throughout the Second World War into Korea and Vietnam. Of course, you'll recognize the field watch references, and of course the legendary Hamilton Model 21 and 22 marine chronometers, which were highly, highly accurate, especially for the time. So we all know that Omega and Bulova were in the space game, but I bet you didn't know Hamilton was trying to get in on that as well. This Martian clock was one of 2 clocks designed by Hamilton to promote the brand when there was a huge interest in the possibility of going to Mars in the 1970s. This Martian clock was the brainchild of I.M. Leavitt from the Franklin Institute, but built by Ralph Metzer at Hamilton. This could simultaneously show the time and the date on Mars as well as Earth. Now, Martian day is about 37 minutes longer than Earth, and the Martian year is 322 days longer, so you can imagine the insane amount of math it took to make a clock like this work.